The afternoon sun streamed through the Forrester mansion's wide windows, creating long shadows across the marble flooring where Hope Logan Spencer stood still, clutching her phone so tightly that her knuckles grew white. The call came from the Los Angeles Police Department, and a calm, professional voice spoke words that crushed her world in an instant. Liam, her Liam, the man who had always been the stable, thoughtful one in their chaotic lives, was arrested. Not for a petty offense or misunderstanding, but for a fatal stabbing. The victim, whose name she hardly recognized in the haze of shock, had been discovered with a knife wound that killed him, and the evidence, they claimed, pointed directly to her husband. Hope's breath seized in her throat as she relived the event in her memory. She had been in the living room earlier that day, ironing little garments for their daughter Beth and singing quietly to herself as the baby slept upstairs. For once, everything felt nearly normal. No major confrontations with Steffi, no lingering emotions from previous betrayals, just the peaceful rhythm of family. The phone rang, and everything tilted. She remembered slumping into the couch, her legs giving way, as the officer informed that Liam had been apprehended at the Spencer Publications headquarters. According to witnesses, there was a scuffle, heated words were exchanged, and suddenly a blade flashed. Fatal. The word resonated like a drumbeat in her mind. She could not believe it. Liam was not violent. He was the guy who apologized to waiters if his order was incorrect, who spent hours with Beth constructing forts out of couch cushions, and who always tried to see the good in others, even when they didn't deserve it. Stabbing somebody? It did not fit. However, the cops had probable cause to handcuff him and escort him away in front of startled coworkers. Hope's mind flashed back to the last time she had seen him that morning, a quick peck on the cheek and a promise to pick up dinner on his way home. Had she missed something in his eyes? A shade of worry he hadn't expressed? By evening, the word had spread like wildfire among Los Angeles' elite. Brooke Logan, Hope's mother, was the first to arrive, rushing through the door with her arms extended and tears spilling. "Honey, oh my God," she said softly, drawing Hope into a passionate embrace. Brooke had seen her fair share of scandals, but this one was different. Her son-in-law, the father of her granddaughter, was suspected of murder. Ridge Forrester followed close after, his typical swagger dampened, offering silent support as he poured Brooke a drink and advised they contact a lawyer right once. The family gathered quietly, attempting to figure out what had happened. Hope sat numbly, gazing at the family portraits on the mantel. There was one from their previous vacation, with Liam putting Beth on his shoulders at the beach and both of them laughing into the camera. Another from their wedding renewal, Hope dressed in white lace, Liam looking at her as if she were the only person in the universe. How had things gotten to this? She reviewed the previous weeks, looking for clues. Liam had become distant recently, absorbed with work at Spencer Publications. He recalled disagreements with co-workers and tensions over business decisions, but nothing that indicated danger. There was one night when he arrived home late, shirt untucked, with a little cut on his hand that he dismissed as a paper jam mistake. Had it been blood? Is it not his own? As night fell, Hope went to Beth's room. The tiny girl was asleep, thumb in mouth, completely unaware of the storm gathering downstairs. Hope perched on the side of the crib, stroking her daughter's soft hair and murmuring promises she wasn't certain she could keep. "Daddy's coming home soon," she added, her voice shaking. But was he? Bail was initially rejected because the case was too serious and the evidence too overwhelming, they claimed. A knife bearing Liam's prints, and witnesses who claimed they saw him lunge in rage. Hope's stomach twisted. She had to think there was more to the story, some explanation to clear his name. The next morning, a slew of media arrived outside the residence. Reporters yelled questions as Hope attempted to sneak away for coffee, cameras flashing nonstop. "Mrs. Spencer, did you know your husband was capable of violence? How will you cope as a single mother?" The words stung like salt in a wound. A single mother. She never dreamed those statements would apply to her life. Beth needed both parents, Liam's gentle patience to balance Hope's resolve, and his sense of humor to lighten her seriousness. Without him, the home felt emptier, the silence more intense. Hope finally saw him in the police station. The visiting room was bleak, with fluorescent lights humming overhead. Liam appeared dressed in an orange jumpsuit with chained wrists and a pale, drawn face. When he saw her through the glass, his eyes welled up with tears, which he attempted to brush away. "Hope," he murmured in a raspy voice. "I'm sorry." She put her fingers against the partition, wishing she could touch him. He spoke in halting words, a dispute that escalated too quickly, a weapon drawn by the other man first, a battle in which everything blurred. He urged on self-defense. However, the victim had died, and the account that the police had pieced together depicted Liam as the attacker. Hope listened, her heart hurting with each detail. She wanted and needed to believe him, but doubt crept in like fog. Why hadn't he phoned her immediately? Why had he let it go so far? Liam reached for the glass, matching her motion. "I love you. I love Beth. Tell her I'm fighting to get back to you both." When the guard announced time was over, Liam was carried away, with his shoulders lowered. Hope remained seated long after he had left, tears pouring silently. Back home, the reality of single parenthood sank in like a thick blanket. Mornings began early now, with Beth's cries waking Hope from a restless slumber. She made breakfast one-handed while answering emails for Hope for the Future, her fashion company that demanded attention even as her personal life unraveled. Diaper changes, story time, playdates. Every task felt massive without Liam's assistance. Friends offered help, but no one could replace him. Steffi called, surprisingly nice, offering to watch Beth while Hope went to the jail or met with lawyers. There was history between them, ancient rivalries for Liam's heart, but in this situation, old resentments disappeared. Nights were the most difficult. Hope lay in their bed, now just hers, staring at the empty side where Liam had slept. She recalled languid Sunday mornings with coffee and newspapers, the way he would wrap his arms around her from behind while she cooked, and his whispered, "I love you," before bedtime. Now the bedding remained cool. She wondered if he was sleeping at all in that cell, if he was terrified, or if he regretted the decisions that lead to that tragic moment. The weeks passed in a flurry of court dates, lawyer appointments, and whispered tabloid gossip. The prosecution established their case methodically, motive based on economic rivalry, opportunity in a private confrontation, and physical evidence linking Liam to the location. The defense responded with self-defense claims, character witnesses, and contradictions in witness accounts. Hope attended every hearing she could, sitting in the gallery and clutching Brooke's hand tightly. Every time Liam entered the courtroom in handcuffs, her heart pounded. He appeared leaner, his eyes clouded, but he always returned her gaze with a faint, reassuring grin. Beth started asking questions. "Where's Daddy?" Hope responded as best she could. "Daddy's away working on something important, but he loves you so much." But the toddler's perplexity intensified. Bedtime stories seemed empty without Liam's goofy voices. Hope found herself crying in the shower, hoping Beth wouldn't hear her, the water concealing her sobs. Hope sat at the kitchen table one evening, going through old photos while the rain pounded the windows. She discovered one from years ago, Liam proposing on a beach at twilight, and Hope laughing in astonishment. They had worked so hard for their love, overcoming breakups, betrayals, and other people's attempts to separate them. Was this the final test? Or the end? She caressed his face with her finger, imploring, "Come home to us." The trial was drawing closer, with evidence mounting on both sides. Hope braced herself for the possibility of a lengthy separation, possibly years if convicted. She considered moving closer to her mother for assistance, managing economics without Liam's salary, and explaining to Beth why Daddy was not around for birthdays or holidays. The weight of it all threatened to crush her, but she found strength in her daughter, the tiny girl who continued to think everything would be fine because Mommy said so. In quiet moments, Hope allowed herself to imagine Liam being exonerated, walking through the door, scooping Beth up, and drawing Hope into his arms. Her dream kept her going. She wrote messages to him, expressing her anxieties and love, and sneaking images of Beth inside. He replied with pages of apologies, promises, and recollections that made her grin through tears. As the days evolved into weeks, Hope adapted. She grew stronger in unexpected ways, dealing with workplace challenges, calming Beth through nightmares, and facing the world with a chin held high despite the pitying looks. She was a single mother, but not broken. Yes, she was devastated. Her heart ached every time she passed Liam's empty chair at dinner, but she remained resilient. Love for her daughter drove her, and hope for Liam kept her going. The story was not over. Trials had twists and realities surfaced in unexpected ways. Hope clung to that. Liam battled his own struggles in a freezing cell, thinking about his family who waited for him. And at their home, Hope held the fort one day at a time, whispering to the night that a love like theirs did not fade so simply. The news did not reach Hope all at once. It came in fragments, whispers, ignored calls, and the unsettling silence that occurs when something horrible has already occurred but no one knows how to express it aloud. It began with a knock on the door shortly after daybreak. Hope had had little sleep the night before. Beth had awoken twice from a nightmare, and by dawn, the small girl was nestled next to her, breathing softly beneath the cover. The house felt motionless and delicate in the early light, with every small sound exaggerated. The knock came again, firmly and officially. Hope carefully slipped out of bed to avoid waking Beth. She put on a sweater and started down the corridor, her heart already racing for reasons she couldn't understand. When she opened the door, 2 police officers were there on the porch. For a time, she assumed it was an error. "Ms. Logan?" the older cop inquired kindly. "Yes," Hope answered. "What is going on?" The young officer shifted uncomfortably. "We need to talk to you about Liam." Hope felt the air leave her lungs. "Is he hurt?" she inquired quickly. The officers exchanged glances. "He's in custody," the older one stated. Hope blinked. The words did not make sense. "In custody?" she repeated slowly. "For what?" The officer hesitated. "For a homicide investigation." The world seems to tilt. Hope grasped the doorframe, as if the ground underneath her had suddenly grown unsteady. "That's impossible," she muttered. The officer's voice remained calm, yet forceful. "Ma'am, Liam was arrested early this morning in connection with a fatal stabbing." The words rang through her head like a faraway explosion. Fatal stabbing. Liam. Hope shook her head instinctively. "No," she replied. "You are wrong. Liam would never. He is not capable of that." "We understand how terrible this is," the officer said quietly. "But he's currently being processed at the station." Hope's heart hammered so hard she couldn't hear anything else. "Who?" she asked softly. "Who got stabbed?" "We can't share all the details yet." The hush that followed felt oppressive. Hope then realized Beth was still sleeping upstairs. Her daughter had no idea that her life was about to change forever. "Can I see him?" Hope inquired. "That may be possible later today," the officer explained. "For the time being, we just needed to inform you." Hope nodded slowly, as if nothing in the moment felt true. After the officers left, she stayed in the doorway for a few seconds, peering out at the vacant street. Although the sky was brightening into daylight, everything inside her seemed gloomy and uncertain. "Liam has been arrested. Fatal stabbing." Her mind wouldn't absorb the words. Beth stirred and called gently from upstairs. "Mommy." Hope immediately wiped the tears that had begun to form in her eyes before forcing herself to move. "I'm coming, sweetheart." When she entered the bedroom, Beth was sitting up and clutching her stuffed rabbit. "Who stood at the door?" the small girl inquired. Hope sat next to her on the bed. "Just some people asking questions," she said gently. "What about Daddy?" Hope froze. Beth inherited Liam's curiosity and perceptiveness. "Yes," Hope admits. "Is Daddy coming today?" Beth inquired optimistically. Hope's throat clenched. "I don't know yet." Beth scowled slightly but nodded, fully believing her mother. Hope hugged her daughter warmly. In that moment, one realization hit her with brutal clarity. Beth would need to be strong regardless of what occurred next, even if her own world was crumbling. Later that morning, Hope drove to the police station, her hands quivering. The city moved around her as usual. Cars passed, people walked, coffee shops opened, but everything seemed strangely distant from her reality. Inside the station, the air was frigid and clinical. A receptionist directed her to the waiting room. Hope sat on a hard chair, staring at the gray floor tiles. Every few minutes, her phone vibrated with messages. The majority were from family members who had already heard the news.
Brooke. Ridge.
Even Steffi. The tale circulated swiftly. She couldn't bring herself to reply to anyone yet. All she wanted was to see Liam. Eventually, a detective approached. "Is there any hope, Logan?" She stood up promptly. "Yes. My name is Detective Alvarez. Liam has asked to visit you." Her heart skipped. "Can I?" The detective nodded. "Follow me." They proceeded down a small corridor lined with shuttered doors. Hope's pulse quickened with each stride. When they arrived at the little interrogation room, the detective opened the door. Liam sat at the table inside. His hair was tangled, his face pallid, and his eyes had a troubled look she had never seen before. For a minute, neither of them spoke. Then Hope raced forwards. "Liam." He stood, relief on his face. "Hope." She threw her arms tightly around him. "What happened?" she inquired, breathless. "They're saying you." Her voice cracked. Liam closed his eyes. "I know what they're saying." "Tell me it's not true," Hope said quietly. Liam paused. The pause itself terrified her. I didn't mean for anyone to die." Her heart sank. "What does that mean?" Liam ran his hands through his hair. "There was a fight last night. Things became out of control." "A fight with whom?" He looked down at the table. Hope's stomach turned with dread. "Liam," she asked. "Who?" "It was Finn." The room seems to whirl.
Finn.
Hope gulped. "Yes." Hope looked at him with shock. "Why are you fighting with Finn?" Liam swallowed hard. It began as an argument. About Steffi. Hope's mind raced as she thought about all that had happened recently. "Did you stab him?" she whispered. Liam's eyes were filled with pain. "There was a knife. It happened so quickly. I had no idea what I had done until he fainted." Hope pulled away slightly. The tragedy of the situation overwhelmed her. "Is he dead?" Liam nodded slowly. The words crushed something within her. "Finn, kind, sensitive Finn, is no longer with us. And Liam is responsible." "I swear I never meant to hurt him," Liam said urgently. "Hope, you have to believe me." Her eyes welled up with tears. "I believe you didn't mean it," she added softly. "But that doesn't change what happened." Liam appeared to be on the verge of breaking up. "I've ruined everything." Hope did not respond right away. Her mind had already turned to Beth, to the life that their daughter deserved, to the future, which suddenly appeared uncertain. "What will happen to you?" she asked gently. "My lawyer says they're considering murder charges," Liam said. The word seemed like a death sentence. Hope pushed her hands to the table for support. "Hope," Liam exclaimed urgently. "Please don't give up on me." She gazed at him, seeing both the man she loved and the stranger who had killed someone. "I don't know what to do," she said. Outside the room, the detective waited attentively. Inside, Hope felt as if time had frozen. Eventually, she stretched across the table and took Liam's hand. "I'll make sure Beth knows you love her," she told me. Liam's eyes streamed with tears. "Tell her I'm sorry." Hope nodded. But deep down she knew something Liam didn't quite understand. Their lives had changed irrevocably. Days flew by, filled with lawyers, court hearings, and constant media coverage. The story has become a popular sensation. A terrible killing. A beloved doctor has died. A once-admired man is accused of murder. Hope attempted to shield Beth from the chaos. However, children sensed more than adults understood. One evening, Beth glanced up from her coloring book. "Mommy?" "Yes." "Why is everyone talking about Daddy on TV?" Hope felt her chest tightening. She turned off the TV. "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes," she explained kindly. "Has Daddy made a mistake?" Hope kneeled alongside her daughter. "Yes." Beth thought about it. "Is he in trouble?" Hope nodded. "But he still loves you very much." Beth held her fiercely. "I love him, too," Hope said, holding her tight and fighting back tears. In that moment, she recognized the most difficult aspect of this journey would not be the courtrooms or the media. It would involve explaining to her daughter why the man she adored might not be returning home. Weeks later, Hope sat alone in the courtroom for Liam's preliminary hearing. He appeared tired in his suit, the weight of the situation clearly crushing him. The prosecution presented the case with ruthless clarity. Witness statements, forensic reports, the knife. Each detail felt like another crack in Hope's heart. Hope closed her eyes as the judge announced that Liam would remain in custody pending trial. The prospect of imprisonment was becoming increasingly real. Outside the courthouse, reporters shouted questions. Hope ignored them all. Instead, she drove home to see Beth. Because no matter how painful the circumstances became, one truth remained constant. Beth needed her. That night, after putting her daughter to bed, Hope sat alone in the living room. The house seemed different now. Quieter. Lonelier. She selected a photo of their family from the previous summer. Liam was smiling as Beth sat on his shoulders. The memory felt like it was from another lifetime. Hope traced the edge of the photograph with her finger. "I don't know what our future looks like," she said quietly into the empty room. But one thing became painfully clear. She was now a single mother navigating an upside-down world. And, despite the heartbreak, she would have to find the strength to start a new life for herself and daughter. Beth deserved a hopeful future, even in her darkest moments.